Today's video is going to be a bit different. For my regular viewers, you are quite accustomed to me ripping apart blown up engines to find out what went wrong and what parts survived. For my irregular viewers, that's kind of what we do here most of the time. And today we have a 3.6 liter Pentastar on my auxiliary engine stand. I don't really like this stand very much. And we're also in front of my teardown table, which I don't use in none of my videos. And the reason for this is that this engine is supposed to be bad, but I think we're going to fix it. About a week and a half ago, I was on the phone with my friend Ray from the YouTube channel Rainman Ray's Repairs. If you are unfamiliar with that YouTube channel, you should check it out. I'll leave a link in the video description.
Hello everybody, good day to you. I'm Ray and I run the Rainman Ray's Repairs YouTube channel. I also own and operate a local automotive repair shop located in Bradenton, Florida. A few weeks ago, I had some customers come in and they brought me their 2011 Chrysler Town and Country. It's a 3.6 Pentastar V6 engine. It came in on the tow truck. Unfortunately, this vehicle had sprung a massive coolant leak out of one of the heater core hoses. Now what this had done is caused some internal engine damage. The overheat event was so great that the cylinder head had warped, and what was left of the coolant migrated its way down into the combustion chamber on cylinder 4, ultimately condemning this engine. The customers had decided at that point that it was not cost effective for them to make the repair on this particular vehicle. Now, since we were not going to move forward with the repairs, I ultimately purchased the vehicle from the customers. At that point, I gave Eric a ring and asked him, what's it gonna cost to put an engine in this? What should we do with it? And he and I had a back and forth conversation for an hour or so on the possibilities for this particular van. We had discussed, again, blowing up the engine just kind of for fun. We discussed selling the van after replacing the engine, and we also discussed replacing the engine and then donating this van to a family that needed it. And at that point, I had realized that the Tosis, who had owned this van currently or previously, they were the family that needed it.
Because he explained to me that the family that owned this van is a family with 5 kids, and the wife and mom is going through chemotherapy, and they have one other vehicle, which is a Nissan NV passenger van. I have the cargo van version of that van, and I can tell you without a doubt that that van will get 14-ish miles to the gallon going downhill with a tailwind, fully empty, with overinflated tires, the AC off, in ideal conditions. You get my point. It's not good on gas, and that right now is their only vehicle.
So Eric and I revisited the drawing board, and we realized that Eric in fact had an engine that would work in this van. He had a set of cylinder heads to repair it with, and I have the ability and the equipment to replace the engine. So what we decided to do, free of charge, is that Eric is going to take his engine, put it back together, and get it in good operating condition. He's going to send it down here to me in Florida, and then we are going to pull the drivetrain out of it, replace the engine, put the drivetrain back in, and we're going to give this van back to the family free of charge.
So the goal of today's video is to prove the viability of this engine for repair for this van. We're going to try to prove or disprove the initial diagnosis as a pitted valve seat. We're going to do a leak down test, which I have my leak down tester. We may even smoke test it to see if we can actually see where the leak is coming from. But we also need to check out the rest of this engine, the overall condition, so at least I know whether this is a good candidate for this or whether I need to hunt down another van to buy for the engine. We're going to check things like the oil filter, see if there's any metal in the filter, and then we'll tear it all the way down if it proves to be a good engine. Well, it turns over nice. Now, there are no spark plugs in here, so I should not be feeling compression. I don't hear any Uncle Rodney's loose in there. Okay, so now we need to verify each cylinder is at top dead center, and we'll do a leak down test in all 6. All right, so to verify each cylinder is at top dead center, I've got a short extension. We're going to put it through where the spark plug goes to where it rests gently on the top of the piston. And this works on engines that are usually dual overhead cam where the plug is in the middle. Don't try this on engines that have angled spark plugs because bad stuff will happen. And we're just going to wait till it reaches the top. And that looks like it right there. All right, I've got my leak down tester hooked up. I'll hook up the air to it. And that's already a bad sign. I can hear it coming out of the... Oh, excuse me. I'm going to turn the engine over just slightly and see if we can change those numbers. Maybe I'll... Oh, I think the engine just turned over. Sorry guys, didn't mean to kick you. Oh, here we go. So I could turn this up a little bit and see if I can actually turn this up. Turn the regulator up. So this is pretty good leak down numbers right now. So we'll disconnect that. So that cylinder checks out okay. I must not have had that cylinder all the way at top dead center. Turn that all the way down. We'll move on to the next. All right, now we can hook up air to the next cylinder over. That cylinder's at top dead center already. And that's pretty good leak down numbers. If it had a problem, this needle would be somewhere less than this. 8%, 10%. It's usually not too terrible, especially on a cold engine. This isn't so bad. All right, so that's not good. I can hear it rushing out of the intake. We're going to turn this thing over and see if we can't find it. Maybe it's just not at top dead center. All right, so I think we have our problem here. Yeah, so this cylinder has a problem. I can feel it's kind of fighting it right there, but it's also coming out of the exhaust. So, let me re-verify this is at top dead center, and then maybe we have found our problem cylinder. All right, that is TDC right there. We're going to try this once more, and if we still have an undesirable result, which I know we're going to, because I've turned this engine at least 2 full revolutions, then we're going to investigate a little further. I can hear it right out of the exhaust and out of the intake. Out of both. At TDC, that's a problem. But I don't feel anything out of the crankcase, which would be the worst situation. That means that's a bottom end problem. Don't see any issues there. So let's smoke it and see if we can visually see where this comes from. So I don't know if this is going to work or not. We're going to pressurize this. This is a smoke machine. You can see it coming out of the intake port and out of the exhaust port. So now we've got 2 senses, 3 senses actually. I can smell it. So we can see it, we can smell it, and we can hear it. That's 3 things to tell us that air is escaping out of the intake right there, out of the exhaust. So I need to give Ray credit for this one. This was his idea to do this, so you guys could see the problem. You see the smoke coming out of the intake port. And it's not as bad, but there's also smoke coming out of the exhaust port. But importantly, nothing coming out of the crankcase. This doesn't really fit that well in here. But it's enough to diagnose. Now it's time to leak down test the rear bank. And instead of trying to find top dead center, we're just going to turn the engine over at a low pressure, and I can always crank the pressure if needed. Will you? Fine. Contact. All right, so now get the camera in a good spot for you. All right, I've got it down to just over 50 PSI, which is pretty low, pretty easy for me to fight. We're going to turn this engine over until it starts to come up. Look at that. Oh, come on, engine. Don't do that. How are they going to see if it's like that? And I can turn this up. It's got very good leak down. That's very good numbers. On to the middle cylinder. Crank this back down. Will you just be happy? Oh, okay. Oh, we can still. I'll hold this there so you can see the numbers. Even though I can't see them. So those numbers is a little off. A little more than I'd like to see for leak down. I can hear it coming out of the intake. Yep, that's coming out of the intake. Okay, so we got some potential intake valve problems with that middle cylinder. Definitely has air rushing past the intake valve. And the final cylinder, the rear bank. Yeah, those are pretty good. It's got a little coming past, but not bad. I could crank this up a little bit, maybe. Doesn't want to be cranked. That's fine. I'm pretty confident now that I hear no air coming through the crankcase in any of these cylinders, that the bottom of this engine should be in pretty good shape. The next thing I'd like to do is pull the oil filter and inspect. Whoa, sorry guys, you're in the way. All right. Well, this thing's been on the shelf long enough that most of the residual oil is gone, so this isn't really too wet. And I see no sparkles, no forbidden glitter. I did not expect to find anything, but I'm still going to look, because if I did find a bunch of metal in here, then I know we'd be done here and I'd be looking for a different engine. Now we're going to start with the front valve cover, but first we need to remove these two little brackets. And now we can unbolt the valve cover. Oh, I think this needs to come out. Before we start prying, I think this has to come out. Oh, I feel so much better. Look how clean that is. So here's a good look at the inside of the cylinder head, and it looks great. No varnish. Cams look good. No moisture, no signs of any valve train kicked off at an angle. They never do that. Pentastars never have that problem. Nope, they do. But this looks fantastic. Let's go to the other side. Oh, I have one more harness connector on there, or harness clip. And the valve cover is off. Much like the other side, this side looks perfect. I see no defects over here, no worn cam lobes, no damaged valve train. A little bit of varnish here, but that's where the crankcase ventilation components are, so that's not outside of the norm. Chain looks good. Plenty of tension. So far, so good. While I'm at this spot, I'm going to take a minute and remove the lower intake manifold. Did I miss any? Yep. Oh yeah, I saw the whole thing shake in excitement. It's getting removed. Got a couple sensors in the back here. And we're off. Let's take a look at these intake valves. This all looks pretty good. This is the cylinder that they were at their worst. And I don't really see anything on camera. I'm sure once this is on my laptop and I can edit it, I may see something, but that's the worst cylinder there. And on the rear bank, I don't see anything jumping out at me. Next, we're going to tackle the front timing cover. That's not the same size. Did Ford work on this? Next, the plastic thermostat housing. Nope, I need that. That looks good. Yeah, we're definitely not going to reuse this. And now, the water pump. I think all the bolts are out of it.
What am I doing here?
I'm going to be very careful with this water pump. Came off with the gasket. It's an original Mopar part. It has the factory Mopar logo on it. Yeah, let's see if we can get this gasket off of here. Yeah, that's perfect. There's the water pump. Looks excellent. That's a great part. I'm just kidding. This engine's going back together. I'm not going to throw parts from it around. Nowhere near the box. Now the crank pulley. I can't remember if these need a puller or not. Apparently not. I'm going to go with not need a puller. Next, we're going to make sure it's drained because the last thing I want to do is make a mess. So that wasn't tight. So I'm going to assume this is drained, which is a risky proposition here. A little bit of oil. Doesn't look terrible. We're going to let that drip to its content or empty, one of the two. And we're going to start zipping some front timing cover bolts out. Time to remove a whole bunch of 10mm bolts. And then there are some bolts here which I can only access once the lower oil pan has been removed. Now I'm going to carefully, very carefully, rotate this engine over in a way that might create the biggest mess in the world on my floor. We'll see. We're going to do this without a pan because I like to live my life dangerously. Oh, it's fine. I got pig mat. I think I can probably work like so. Yeah, that seems safe-ish. Okay, I think I've got all the bolts out. See if we can do this gently. I think we need bigger guns for this. That's not working either. I'm going to be very careful. I said I'm going to be very careful. This tool will do the job, I think. Well, it kind of did some jobs. I think that's doing the tricks. We're moving now. And there's the oil pan. A little bit of oil in there. Oil? Looks like oil. I don't see any forbidden glitter. No sparkles. I feel good about this. And the inside of the engine looks pretty good too. There's nothing clogging the pickup. And there are the bolts that I need to remove to get the timing cover off. 13mm headed bolts. I think that's it. Now it's time to see if we can get this timing cover off. Nice place to pry right here. Unfortunately, there's no threaded bolts to roll this one off, but I don't think it's going to be too big of a deal. Not really any place to pry over here. But what we can do, give it a little tap right here. Uh-oh, I'm going to lose some bolts. And there's the timing cover. Look how nice that is. That is clean. All right, let's take a look at these timing components, because I was told by many people that work on these vehicles on a regular basis that they don't really have timing chain guide or any issues with the timing components, but they would install new tensioners. The chain seems to be pretty good. I can see the off-color links so I can time it correctly. We'll get a closer look at those guides once I get them apart, but I don't see anything alarming. That's going to be my discretion. All right, let's take the tensioners off first. Just going to look the other direction. Where did that go? It's gone. It's gone. It's gone. Totally gone. I honestly don't know where that went. Well, I got the bolts, which I'm going to put a new tensioner in there anyway, so it's not a huge deal. I'm going to leave the bolts in the tensioner so I know where they go. That was excessively violent. I'm sure you guys liked it. And then this can just... Yeah, this looks pretty decent. I don't see any issues with it. A little bit of wear, but it's not bad. We'll look at this a little closer. That one seems to look pretty good too. I'll leave the bolts in there, so again, I know where everything goes. And now I think I can remove this beautiful chain. Look at that thing. Finally, I get to reuse one. Now it's time to crap the cam crams off. Now, normally when you pull cam caps off of an engine you're going to put back together, or even just sell the cylinder head, you want to keep these in order. I am not going to be reusing these cylinder heads, but I'm still going to keep them in order just for the sake of practice. Now we can pull this cam out. The cam journals and the cylinder head look excellent. All the rollers feel good, but it doesn't matter. The new engines, well, the new cylinder head's going to get new rollers, the updated design. I think it's a failure point on these engines, and I just want some extra insurance so this engine can be as reliable as possible. Camshafts look great. I'd flip the cam caps over, but there's really no point because there's no damage to the cams or the journals, which tells me that there's really no damage to the cam caps. Now, because this stand does not have brakes, I've turned the engine at an angle so it's easier to fight the ground than the casters on the stand. And we're going to get these head bolts cracked loose. Now we can zip these head bolts out. And now I think this head should just lift right off and hopefully not make a mess. There's our head gasket. Head gasket looks pretty good. I don't see any points where it's breached. I didn't expect any overheat damage from this engine because that wasn't the complaint with this engine. And these pistons look really clean, and I think they look clean because I bet there was an effort made to clean up the valve seats, which inherently would clean up the pistons with all of the chemical run through there. But they all look pretty similar. The bores are beautiful on this engine. I don't see only a few vertical scratches, nothing that would catch my fingernail. This looks great. There's the cylinder head. I don't see any signs of issues here. I suppose that this could get a valve job and I could reuse these cylinder heads. I'll have to see what the machine shop says. I do have this pair of heads here, which I believe these are slightly newer heads. I don't know if that's better or not. I'm sorry, I have to do the test. It's the rules. I don't make them, I just enforce them. See, are you happy? Satisfied? Now onto the front bank. Like the other side, I'm just gonna look the other way and hope for the best. Actually, I'm just gonna stand on the other side. What's the worst that could happen? This seems fine. Oh, I see no issue here. None at all. Oh, see, it's fine. I know this comes off. Somehow this comes off. How did I do this before? I did this before. So I don't want to take this off. That looks like it's difficult. Boy, I feel like I'm in a predicament. Will this help me here? I don't know. I have all the slack on this side. That doesn't help me. I am no better off than I was 2 seconds ago. Except now I think I'm at top dead center. This comes off. I know it comes off. We are really close. But we are not there. All right, I think I'm just going to crack this loose. I didn't want to take this off. I don't know if this is all one piece or not. Well, it kind of feels like it, doesn't it? I just figured I could get the chain off. This is not working the way I want it to. Why did they make it this way? There we are. That wasn't too bad. And then I can do one of those numbers. And there's the other chain. There's the other rail. This all looks pretty decent. So the guide material looks pretty good. I'm going to price these out to see if I want to replace these or not. I think I may replace these rails here, but the metal rails look really nice. We'll see what I can find. Before I start cramming some more cram caps off, I have a dipstick tube. And it's not going to fight me because we're going to think positively. We're going to think good things. This is a good engine. We're saving it. It's going to be happy with me. It's not going to, you know what? I can probably leave it. You know what? I'm just going to leave it. Why would I take this out if I don't need to? It's got a broken dipstick though. We'll get that out. Let's remove the cam craps. Just like the other head, this looks great. I see no cause for concern. I'm glad we're not throwing this engine away. Cams look good too. These are pretty hot seller. Not that I'm going to sell these, but I get asked for these cams quite a bit. I guess they get chewed up when the rockers fail. And the head bolts. This dipsticks tube, I swear. Will you just hold on a second. You're going to come out of there and you're going to like it. Why am I pulling them out in order? Can you tell it's late? There's a head gasket. That one looks really nice too. I don't see any areas where it's breached. It's a very similar story on this bank. Bores look good. Pistons look good. Feeling pretty good about this. There's an overwhelming smell of chemical from trying to get those valves to seat, but there's not really any chemicals that'll do your own valve job. That needs to be done in a machine shop. So these look pretty good. Bores look really nice. Pistons look good. I don't see any damage. Feeling pretty good about this at this point. Clean these up a little bit more. They don't need much. I can definitely tell there's a lot of chemical in here. It smells like the oil actually that I put in here to fog it. That's what I'm smelling. Cylinder head. You can see there's some oil around those seats. Those were the ones that were leaking right there. This all looks pretty good. And these heads might be salvageable. We'll have to see what the machine shop says, but I would feel a lot better using these. Due to Ray's past experience with these engines, he advised me or requested that I turn this engine over to make sure all the pistons go to the top of the board, make sure there's nothing bent. That one does. That one does. I'm sorry guys, I'm not doing the test on this bank. So it's a waste of a Scantron. That one's at top dead center. That one's top dead center. And all right, I feel pretty good about this. I think I'm done for the evening. At this point, I feel very confident that this engine will prove itself to be reliable for quite some time. I know Ray and I have talked extensively about this project, the parts we should do, the parts we shouldn't do. How far do you go with this? Well, neither of us want this family to be in the same boat in 6 months' time. That's not really going to do any good for anybody. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they're just not going to be in this boat again. This van can be very reliable. I've seen these vans with 300, 400,000 miles on them quite easily, and their van only has 152,000 miles. It's not worn out by any stretch. So I think Ray talked about putting a new oil cooler housing on it, an oil filter housing. I know that's a point of failure with them. It'll get new cooling system. I'm going to take all 4 cylinder heads to the machine shop and let them pick the best 2. I have a feeling it's going to be the pair that I had on the shelf. I'll do new roller rockers, the updated design, new lifters. I'm going to put new guides in it because I know if I mention that I'm going to reuse guides after all of the timing chain guide things that have happened on this channel, I will never live it down. So yes, it's going to get new guides, new tensioners, anything that I need to do while I'm in there to make sure this is a reliable engine this engine's going to get. And I know some of you might be asking, is this really worth it? Why don't you just find them a good engine? Well, this is going to be a good engine, and it's going to be the best it can be. It's not going to be a question mark. Has that engine that I bought, or has the van that I bought for its engine been overheated? I don't know. Has it been updated with the new rocker design, oil cooler housing? We don't know those answers, but now we will. Now we'll know exactly what we're dealing with. This engine showed no signs of internal failure. And that's all I wanted to verify today. I wanted to tear it down to make sure that we're not working with something that had deeper problems. This is going to be a fun project. I don't need more projects in my life, but this is an opportunity for me to give back. I think Ray feels the exact same way. Both of us have been very fortunate. We've been very lucky. I've had friends, I've had people help me out in times where I really needed it. And I know no one asked us for their help in this situation, but we felt that this was the right thing to do, and I think everybody's going to win in this situation. So I don't know when the next update will be. Obviously, the machine shop's going to have cylinder heads. I got to go order some parts. It might be a week or 2 or 3. I'm hoping sooner than later so I can get this engine down to Florida and they can get their van fixed. Really hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's something different. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one. Oh, and if you need parts for this 1994 Honda Civic EX, this thing's only got 100,000 miles on 102,000 miles. I still buy these for parts because I sell so many parts from them. It's a shame there aren't more of them out there. I'm not fixing it. 1992 to 1995 were my favorite years for Honda Civics. The best years for Civics. No offense to EF people or 96 to 2000 guys. Those are very good cars too. These were the best. I'm sorry. These were just great cars. It's a shame that all of them have rusted out. I bought this 100,000 mile 94 out of Chicago. It's rusty. I'm not fixing it. But if you want to buy parts off of it, you can go to importapart.com. We've been updating our parts cars just about every single week. Or you can send us an email. I'll leave our email in the video description. And if you'd like to check out the family that's going through it, the one that's going to be receiving their van fixed, I'll leave a link to their YouTube channel. They're kind of going through and cataloging what their life is like at this point in time. Really appreciate it, guys, and I'll catch you soon.